Hey guys and gals, it's Tripl-L, and now I'm here to talk about Little Witch Academia, I think episode 15. I want to apologize first for the bigger delay on the video. It was going to be up yesterday, but then my area had a blackout. I was out from I think around 5 p.m. till about 3 in the morning, and that set me back quite a bit. No internet and no power. I was sitting in the dark for a good chunk of that time, just singing little songs in my head. But otherwise, yeah, I'm here. Unfortunately though, because of that blackout, because it delayed everything, I haven't rewatched the episode, so some things aren't as fresh in my mind as they would usually be. So ultimately what that means is that I might miss a detail that was actually really important to talk about, but I hope I haven't, because I wrote a little script in the meantime so that I can at least remember the majority of the cool things I want to talk about. So before we actually get into the episode, credit where credit is due. Last video I talked a lot about one thing in particular, just the premise that magic is useless as being stupid. After that, there were conversations in the comment section, and I can't fully be on that line of thought anymore without adding in some stipulations, because one commenter did point out some really good facts, or not facts, did point out some really good points. Bat Knight, whatever, you know, you usually have good points in general, so that's not a big surprise. My overall thoughts on the matter though, I still will, my feelings haven't changed on it, but it is a much more nuanced situation than it was initially presented. With Little Witch Academia, overall, is that you could still argue for why it's seen that way in the in universe, and specifically the whole thing about magic being not that valuable, or people not seeing it as valuable. Ultimately, what it becomes a problem of exposure. It becomes a problem of exposure because magic isn't that widely exposed. People can't really see it as often, so they can't really see it in its usual, in its useful aspects. I think that's one of the points that Bat Knight brought up. The conclusion of the matter is that it's a much more nuanced situation, and if you wanted to, you could argue for why people have that general perspective on magic. Overall, I still feel it's a stupid idea, but it has its justification in universe if you looked for it, and that's ultimately what matters. If you can make it work, then you know you can defend your argument, right? Like, that's the whole point of the end of the day. If you're able to defend your argument, like at that point I have to respect it, because it's like, yeah, that's true. So anyway, you got a point, Bat Knight, and thanks for everyone else who commented. Gico, you commented on another one of the videos, on the, was it the hidden detail video? Like, yeah, just if I haven't responded to you yet, just send me a message or something, and we can talk about that later. Anyway, let's get into the episode. So this episode, we did a few things, and it was marked by a very, 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 very awesome moment. We're going to leave that moment for the end though, because at that point, that's where the episode kind of spirals out of control. Specifically because of how high octane the action became. Like, the action really went to maybe almost Kill la Kill levels of animation. But before we get that, we have to talk about the other parts. And the other parts of the episode revolve around everyone adapting to Croix's new technology and her advancements. Now, this is a very fun episode, and it's just amazing how quickly everything happened. I was actually surprised when I got to the end of the episode, because I thought, wow, that was really fun to watch. So if I remember correctly, there's a thing going on with the structure of this episode, and it's very disjointed, because the first half is dedicated to Akko. Once Akko falls asleep, the second half was dedicated to Ursula, and I'm gonna keep calling her Ursula because I don't like calling her Chariot, but Ursula. And the difference between the two halves is very distinct. Now, also, there was one thing that I found very sloppy in Ursula's half, but at that point, I don't really expect Little Witch Academia to have that kind of strength in executing those kind of narrative beats, and I'll talk about that when we get there. But let's talk about the first half. So in the first half, people just showing off the new technology. We got a mention to the broom. This has been something that we've been seeing in the newspaper, and it's funny to see that the characters are also now having some attention of it, or man, my words are messed up today. It's funny to see how the characters are reacting to it. So I think that means that the broom's going to be coming back to Luna Nova relatively soon, because now we have characters establishing the presence of that broom. But anyway, other things in that first half, this is the half that spurs Akko on to go see Croix, because she was a classmate of Shiny Chariot. And, overall, that's a pretty good spurring of Akko. Like, that's pretty, you could expect that. If she finds out someone new Shiny Chariot, she's going to go and she's going to try and meet the person, right? But in that first half, there was another thing of value, and that was Finneran. Because in the last episode, I mentioned, well, Finneran doesn't like this girl, and she's my best shot. But unfortunately, in this episode, Finneran's adopted a much more 2-bit kind of antagonism towards the technology. First off, let's all appreciate, or not appreciate, but it's just ridiculous that they're telling the kids to just turn off computers when they're at lunch. That's stupid, man. Come on. I know, I get it. It's a traditionalist school. No, you can't have computers around anywhere. And I'm okay calling it a computer, because at the end of the day, that thing is a computer that has a that has a CPU in it. It's a computer. It's just a mobile computer. Really, the technology and they're the same thing. Anyway, not the point. Technical specifications, not the point. The point is that they limit the kids' ability to use the little iPads outside of class, which is stupid. I mean, what if they have homework? Come on, guys. Anyway, the problem here is that Finneran adopts a much more just general antagonistic role instead of the investigative antagonistic role. So instead of being critical about it, she's just going off a regular thing about tradition and all that stifly stuff about magic. And she's retaining her character, but now it just looks 2-bit. It's just whatever. It's generic. Her idea, Croix was a really good student, but now she's just devoted all these things to technology. Oh my God, what is she doing with her life? That kind of methodology or that kind of mentality. It's just unfortunate. I do think Finneran's gonna get a better plot line later on, but at this point, the way they portrayed her in this episode just doesn't help anything. And truthfully, the way they portrayed her this episode is because she's not that important in this episode, so they could just afford to give her some throwaway lines. But I'm not a fan of it. I was really hoping for a little bit more from Finneran, so it'll actually be interesting to see whether or not she becomes useful against Croix in this series. And I'm pretty sure I keep messing up her name, but I kind of like the way I pronounce it now, so everyone knows who I'm talking about, so it should be fine. Anyway, now let's talk about Croix, because that's the next half of the episode, or next chunk of the episode, and this is everything before Croix puts Akko to sleep. And guys, let's face it, that was creepy as all heck. I felt really bad for Akko. That was gross. All right, she put her to sleep and then she extracted her memories. That woman violated Akko's mind. Oh my God, man. And it was cool how she did it with a nice flare with the flower popping out of Akko's head. Overall though, oh man, that was creepy. That's a creep factor right there. At least I felt it was creepy. But Akko's general conversation with Croix, but when there weren't moments of that clearly villain vibe going on underneath those the villain undertones, it was fun. It was a fun little, it was nice. Mostly because Croix said something specifically that she didn't want to adopt the method or the mindset that the other witches had. She made a point of saying that she's different from the other witches. And it's true, she is very different. And the reason that was valuable is that because before that, Finneran, she went and she said some things about Shiny Chariot, just reiterating the point that, oh yeah, Shiny Chariot, she just had frivolous use for magic. We don't like it. The general thing. But that was important in the episode because they had to remind us that, because we were going to get an answer to that later with Croix. So, props on Trigger. They're very good at setting up the elements that they want you to keep in mind when they're going to be tackling it in the episode. So yeah, props. But, throughout that, she's just saying that she doesn't have that kind of mentality that the others have. And that makes Akko really happy. As Akko says, Croix is the first person she's heard talk about Chariot in such a nice way. So now, Croix as a character, and it continues in this episode, she's relatively complex, and she's also very effective, right? It's like this is a very, very effective character. The things that she has accomplished are with merit, right? And so I like the way that Little Witch Academia is setting up this kind of antagonist, because so far she seems totally within acceptable parameters, right? She's not overly evil. She does a few creepy things, and as we find out, she's been watching Akko for months, but she's still a generally competent character. This is something that's very established with the character, and she's also a bit more open-minded, which for a lot of people might put her in a much more favorable light. So she has a lot of very favorable qualities. But then we get the whole thing with her shutting Akko down and wanting to find out more about the shiny rod, because we find out that she had an issue with the shiny rod. She got shocked by it before. She can't touch it, so it's bothering her. The reason for why she's so fascinated with the shiny rod, well, Ursula tells us that in her half. And now that we're in Ursula's half, my god, man, the moment she took off her thing and she has a skin tight suit underneath, oh, that was awesome. Oh my god, I'm more into the skin tight suit than I am to the magic that Ursula was launching around. Oh, so good, so good. Did I tell you guys that I liked Ursula's design the most in this series? Like, oh my god, still true. Oh, nice. Nice. I also like that Ursula still retains some of the comedy elements or the show still expresses some comedy elements in Ursula, because when Ursula falls around, she falls first on her face and she looks very animated and very humorous when she's landing. I appreciate that. I appreciate that little touch. Ursula doesn't need to have that level of grace when we already know what Ursula's like. Overall though, seeing Ursula fight like that was pretty awesome, and it was cool to have Little Witch Academia become like that for those little moments. But then we start up with the Ursula and the Croix talk. And the thing here is, we ultimately end up with a situation where a character tells us why another character is evil, instead of seeing outright why that character is evil. And I'm specifically talking, and this is what I referred to as something that I found sloppy, is when Ursula says, Croix, you just want it all. And two things. First off, that makes sense. I spoke about that in the last video where I said, giving this lady control of the magic supply, that's kind of weird. And now seeing that she has a vested interest in wanting it all, I just used air quotations. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense with what she has set up so far in the show. And then Ursula talking about Croix's fascination with the shiny rod. That was very interesting too, because we all know she wants the world reconstruction magic. Now, the reason that I say that Ursula telling us that Croix wants it all, the reason that I say that that's kind of sloppy is because we might have a precedent for the show's narrative is going to be telling us why Croix is so bad, and it might not do a really great job at showing it. Because so far, arguably, the things that we have seen her do are very manipulative, like trying to start that riot from the spirits and to get into the school and to use her device at the right time, and also putting Akko to sleep and looking through her memories. They're both very manipulative practices, but they're not outrightly evil in any which way or direction, right? Because she's still doing some things that are counterbalancing it. And when it comes to the violation of Akko and looking into her mind, you can argue this is a lady researching it. This is a lady trying to figure out what's going on. And so it makes those actions seem they're morally dubious at best, but they're not outrightly bad. And then you come back with Ursula, who specifically tells us that this person wants to have a lot of things, or wants power in general. So it ends up, there's a bit of a disconnect between what she's doing so far and what we're pretty much being promised that she's gonna do. And the reason this is a problem is because we don't really know how quickly technology is gonna be villainized, even though it is something that generally looks very useful. So again, I really am hoping for the middle road on this, where people adopt technology to some degree, because it is useful to a lot of people. It could be very useful. And in this episode, we saw a mechanism that Croix came up with that allows witches to tap into ley lines so they can draw magic from there. Overall, very cool stuff, right? So that's my only little gripe with that whole dialogue between Croix and Ursula. Another thing that Croix said that was really cool was that she expected Ursula to be more weakened, and she was surprised that she wasn't. So I wonder, did Ursula mess up to some degree and lose a lot of her power? Because I doubt that the shiny rod increases someone's power besides the things that the shiny rod can do. Like if they have a natural talent for magic, I think they should be able to retain it. But it's just going to be interesting to see what exactly happened beyond that, and what exactly could have led into Croix saying that about Ursula, besides the obvious fact that she doesn't have the shiny rod anymore. Now let's start wrapping up the video. We go towards the last segment, which is pretty much Ursula and Akko talking. It's very interesting that Ursula didn't tell Akko that, yeah, no, Croix put you to sleep. You know, and that's the other thing that makes things a bit strange, right? Like, what exactly is going on with Croix and Ursula? We can assume they're friends to some degree, but we don't know. We don't really know. We don't really know what kind of pressures Ursula is under. And another thing, before I forget, Ursula, at this point, you could say that one of Ursula's flaws is that she gets to places too late. She's always a little bit too late, and it's been coming up now. It came up in this episode where she just missed Akko as she went off to see Croix, and it came up last episode where she again missed Akko as she wanted to talk to her about the shiny rod. So I think this might be something that becomes prevalent in Ursula's character. It's just her tendency to be late to things. So it'll be interesting to see if one of her faults that she points out later on is that she was late to some big event, or that she was too late to save someone or something like that. That'll be really interesting to see if that becomes a problem with her. But that wasn't the point. The point of this whole little last segment is that Ursula and Akko finally have the talk about the shiny rod. And we get to see that nicely drawn sequence with Ursula explaining the background and the lore. And you know, very nice. It reminds you that Little Witch Academia is a bit of a visual experience, that they do want to like test out all these different ways of drawing stuff. So I appreciated that sequence. And we ended off the sequence with Akko ultimately saying that, or coming to a conclusion of where Chariot is, that Chariot's out looking for the next word. And then that means that Akko's gonna get to meet her at some point. Like, Akko really makes herself happy by attributing this really heroic aspect to Chariot. And it might be kind of sad, because we know what Chariot is like now. We know it's Ursula. We know that Ursula's gone through something. And we know that it's not as simple as the way that Akko is making it out to be. At that point, I think Akko really built up Chariot in her mind. Like, yeah, Chariot's out there. She's looking for that word. I'm gonna run into her. And it's just, you know, it's unfortunate, but I do see an ending where Akko makes Ursula smile genuinely again. Like, Akko makes Ursula happy again. I'm very much looking forward to that ending. But anyway, that was just a very quick thought about the last scene in the episode. Overall, like I said, it was a very fun episode, and got 20 minutes out of me, so that's worth something. Anyway, guys, I'm gonna end it there. Thanks for watching. And yeah, I hope you have a great day. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I need to say, but no. My words. Leave comments down below, and yeah, till next time. I hope you have a very, very great day.